a machine learning engineer is really good at machine learning stuff. But if you keep pummeling him with either too much responsibility, too much issues, too many things, everyone's like crowding around him, the greatest strength now becomes a weakness because he can't execute at the level that he wants to. And I never realized this, and I'm curious about your take. Pritesh, in today's world of where there's so much ubiquitous information, every single person seems like they're an expert on something because they've read a book or watched a couple of TED Talks or gone through an online course, etc. And there's this big disparity between this theoretical knowledge and clear practical application of it. Maybe like reading a managed book or going through a course on Agile. I bet you've gone through product teams and engineering teams that do that. When you talk to them, like what is your instant reaction to combining or transforming the theory versus practice thing?
This is like an active conversation in our teams right now. And I keep emphasizing like the idea of like power of being like the ability to be concise. And I think people underestimate the value of like how valuable it is, because when you're concise, you're imploring other people to think, right? If I can say something in 3 lines and it's complete, it's like one of those theorems that you used to do in high school, right? Like there's like a SP complete and like, you have this, and the other person like just reads these 3 lines and like knows what that means and will ask Socratic questions to you to truly understand what you're trying to do. And I truly believe that that's the transference of knowledge versus transference of like language. You're trying to achieve an outcome. The best way to achieve the outcome is to write everything that's in your mind, right? The problem is that could be like 15 pages. And now you're asking somebody else to read those 15 pages and like somehow get the blueprint of what you're really trying to achieve that's in your head and transfer it over to their head, right? The problem is people think differently. So I would rather write 3 lines concisely and then force the other person to actually think what you're trying to achieve. And they will ask you revealing questions because it's probably not going to be enough because you do your best possible job to write it in 3 lines. And then you realize, oh, is this enough for me? Enough for the other person? You think it's enough, obviously, because you spent a lot of time. And it's very hard to write something in 3 lines. Like you actually spend 15, 20 minutes thinking, condensing things over and over again. I spend a lot of time doing that. The other person gets that paragraph and then they go, oh, I have questions. And they do the Socratic method on you. Like they keep asking questions that reveal more information. But now they've transferred that knowledge in the way they can think. And now I think you're more likely to get the outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's a super interesting thing. I'll tell you, I have a really great mentor, and he's been my mentor for like 20 plus years. And he's very good at email. He's a great email guy. I like anybody that's good with email because I can kind of organize my thoughts and they'll respond. And we have a good email relationship. A lot of times I'll break down a bunch of things. Like I'll write him 5 to 10 bullet points or a couple of paragraphs and ask for his advice. And Pritesh, never in the last 20 years has he responded with more than 1 line. He will succinctly take in the whole thing and he will respond to my email that is probably complex with 1 sentence that encapsulates the question I was asking, the answer he's giving me, the warmth of his email. And I read it and I'm like, it was a perfect response, which should have taken me 1 sentence to get to that, but he succinctly brought it back. And every time he writes me, Pritesh, I'm like, how did he do that? Like, how was he able to take all that information and make it 1 sentence? And for the first couple of times, I almost thought of it as, man, is that just rude, just responding with 1 sentence? But it shows so much simplicity and so much clarity through this process. And so I want to kind of challenge everyone with this, which is in today's modern content creation world, right? There's 2 mediums that really emphasize this more succinct thinking. One is a platform that you like, which is Twitter or X, because you literally have X number of 250 characters or whatever to communicate your idea. So they have to write it and rewrite it, write it and rewrite it to be ultra tight because people are reading that tweet. And the second is even the short form reels or short form content, you have 60 seconds to get your idea across, but it's actually not 60 seconds. It is the first 3 seconds the hook of the video determines how much of the video you actually watch. So I'll tell you, recently, my team posted a video, and I came up with this idea called 80% equals 100%. So they posted this video, 80% equals 100%. And that was the hook of the video. Hey, today I'm going to show you how 80% equals 100%. And then that was the hook. And then I worked through the video. And it did perform well. It got like 10,000 views or something. Then the team took the same video and changed the hook to, let me show you how you can have a 4-day work week. That was the succinct summary of it. That got 10 times the views. So I was challenging the team, and the team was like, hey, it's not the 60 seconds that matter. It is the first 3 seconds that matter. And what you're saying is, it's not the 3 paragraphs that matter, it's a succinct 3 lines that matter.
I also think in a team, like, it probably applies to, non-technical teams, and we can talk about maybe some SOPs or something like that, right? But at least for us, when we're hiring, hopefully we are hiring very capable people, right? And you don't want to take away fun out of anybody else's job, right? But or else, like, it just doesn't give you that dopamine hit on a daily basis to show up the next day. So why would I write a story that says a user logs in and clicks on some button? Why can't I just say the user goes and creates an invoice? I don't know what, I'm just making things up, right? Why would we not trust that the other person actually understands that sentence?
I'll tell you why. I think that we've lost the thinking behind that, the baseline thinking of we hire smart people. And you and I know this, right? When you and I share an idea, we talk in outcomes. I'm like, hey, Pritesh, can we accomplish blank? No smart person, no capable person likes to be told how to do something. That is their ingenuity. That is their creativity. That is their craft. That is their work. The worst thing is to tell somebody how to do something. But I think the industrial age that we're coming off of was like a assembly line age, which was like, hey, turn on computer, open browser, click blue button, etc. So all I tell people is, hey, is your SOP written for smart people? If it is, like you said, create new invoice, send invoice to Pritesh, and log invoice. That's it. That's all people need to know, right? And if we can write more SOPs for smart people, I actually think that we can SOP a lot of our roles and find redundancies that we've never found before.
Yeah, I think this is a great point. So let me ask you more on this. Do you think that as the globalization in the world goes up, right, the concept of quote unquote outsource or offshore used to be, these people don't really understand our businesses, but we're going to give them these steps and they're just going to click on it for like $5 an hour, right? Versus now with like, as the globe kind of collapses, when I say collapse, I mean the time to do something or the time to communicate, time to travel is collapsing, and will probably collapse even further. And the literacy on the other side of I don't want to say other side of the world, but like, let's just say as the world just develops more and more, the literacy balance is coming up. Do you think that older processes are just not scaling in the new way?
I think it's a great question. It's not only that the older processes are not scaling, I just think that we have capable talent everywhere. If somebody realizes that, like if you take your daughter, like our daughters are similar ages, if they don't know how to do something, they're just like, Dad, I'll just go to YouTube and figure it out.
Yeah.
So the things that where we had to create a baseline level of knowledge, we don't have to do that. Like we're talking about output for them. We're telling them, go make this widget this way, instead of saying, I just want an invoice, right? And I think that the world is starting to talk more in outcomes, and I think smart and capable people are attracted to outcome-based thinking. And we as, I hate to say leaders, but we as the people I think of my job in a lot of ways in your role, I think of my role as just clearing the path. Like I want to remove all friction from people. My job is not to do the job. My job is to like make everything super easy. And so the baseline skills or the baseline things can be learned very quickly. So if someone is working on a HubSpot system and we say in the SOP, send a HubSpot email, they literally are going to helpdesk.hubspot.com looking at how to make an email. They've spent 3 minutes on the video. They know how to do it. We don't need to like write up a 10-page SOP on that. And I think that is the big switch, which is insanely powerful.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, I mean, you use this example about like, we just need to clear the path. The example that I use often, there are two examples I use often internally, is the conductor, right? Like the conductor is not the best violinist or the best pianist or the best, drummer or whatever. Their whole job is to get a team to work together. And the other example I use is like an American football team and the coach, right? The coach is never going to be the quarterback. Some coaches have never, there's actually a coach out there in the NFL has never played football before. Literally not played football, right? But does good defensive, coaching. But the key is that there is this underlying framework of trust that goes both ways, which is actually three ways. Between the pianist and the violinist, there's a trust that I'm going to do my job. There's a trust between the coach or the conductor and the pianist and the conductor and the violinist, which is the conductor is going to conduct and like we're going to follow the instructions. And when that trust is broken, you have the pianist complaining about the violinist being sucking. But while that complaint is happening, guess what's happening? They are no longer playing the best violin possible because they are disturbed by the idea that someone else is not good enough in the team. But what's really happening is a mistrust with the coach or with the conductor. Because the conductor should know that that instrument player is just not good enough for the orchestra.
But dude, this is a very sensitive topic, and so let me bring it up to you. Mediocre kind of, call it B players don't like hanging out with A players because they push them too hard. A players don't like hanging out with B players because they feel like they slow them down often. And we are in this. So the question for you is a sensitive one, which is every organization. I don't think about people as A or B players often. I think about people as have A or B capabilities. So I am not an A or B player, but doing task A, I'm really good at. So I'm a A player in task A. Doing task B, I'm not really good at. So I'm a B player in task B. My question for you is, do you think that as organizations scale, or do you see, like, what's your thought on A and B players? Do you think they get along fine, or do you think that's the conductor's job or the leader's job to bring them together and up-level their skills? Is there something there, or does it just get normalized in a large organization?
In an extremely large organization, like, the number one job of the org is to de-risk the org, right? So very few people, like, I don't know, in Apple, one employee I can think of is like probably John Ivey, right? Where the true creative thinking was coming, and it's like, I don't know how much of his is marketing as well, right? Like, but whatever, like the stories are that, he's like part of the driver of the iPhone. So, like, can you replace that? I think that's just too genius. Like, that's one, once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. But for all the work that we do, true genius is not necessary in everything, right? So that's one. So then there is like that exceptional category that cannot be replaced. It's just people. I think on a day-to-day basis, I like to think the same way you were thinking, which is everybody is probably A at something, right? So you do want to have a team of people that are A at something, whether it's grunt work, whether it's day-to-day, push and tackle, right? Or whether it's actually coming up with new stuff, whatever it is, they're A at something. But if you're A at nothing, in a hyper-growth company, I think it's very difficult to survive that, right? So you should strive to be at A at something. And then hopefully you can up-level your B games to A, and then you become A at multiple things, right? And then that's how you get promoted and all that kind of stuff. But you do need to be, I think you do need to be A at something.
I think I've shared this with you before. I'm a civilian contractor for the U.S. Navy, and I work with a lot of these SEAL team guys. Not this year. This is pre-real, and one of the things that they talk about in the SEAL teams is they'll deploy 4 to 8 people on a mission, right? Instead of sending 400 Marines, they'll send 4 Navy SEALs. And the crazy part, Pritesh, is that each of them is just best in world at that one thing that they do. Like, one person is a breacher, one person is a diver, one person is a bomb tech, one person is a K9 unit, right? But they can all have baseline of, they can all shoot a gun, they can all swim, Literally, that's the only baseline. But in the thing that they do, they are the best at what they do it. And the respect that they each have for each other's A-level skill set is so high because they're like, man, hey, Pritesh is going to come in and defuse the bomb. Hey, Pritesh, how much time do you need? 14 seconds? Great, I got you. Like, they give you so much. So there's this great phrase that my coach always uses. She says, an unguarded strength is a double weakness. So if you are really good at, like, take our machine learning engineer, right? The machine learning engineer is really good at machine learning stuff. But if you keep pummeling him with either too much responsibility, too much issues, too many things, everyone's like crowding around him, the greatest strength now becomes a weakness because he can't execute at the level that he wants to. And I never realized this, and I'm curious about your take. Some people, this A caliber strength that people have, I never thought that needs to be protected in some way. Like, how can we get Pritesh to do more of the zone of genius thing? Or how can we get Andre to do more of that zone of genius thing and remove the other things? Kind of, what is your thought process around, like, how do you react to the phrase unguarded strength is a double weakness?
So we started actively thinking about this. And literally, like, maybe 3 months ago is when we started seeing our A players like start cracking and doing things that they generally don't do. What I mean by that is, like, you start seeing different people like start cracking differently. They either abruptly, this is just personality traits. You have to know these people really well, and then you see this is off pattern. Like, an example off pattern would be like being upset in a meeting that they generally never behave that way, or just seem very frustrated and tired, right? And the worst thing you can do is like stress out your A people, because like eventually they break and they're like, okay, you know what? Maybe I need to take a vacation, or maybe I need a new company or whatever. And then you just lose talent for no reason. But the trade-off is, like, when you're a hyper-growth company, you don't want to take risk, especially when it comes to product. You want to release and it needs to work on the first attempt. So you lean on these A people more and more, and you crush them even more. So at some point, you got to make a conscious decision saying, I'm going to trade off quality towards risk. In fact, probably add some instability in the product at the cost of saving this person. I can trade off speed, right, to market at the cost of saving this person. We, in fact, tell the person, we're going to take you off. You need to take a few days off. You need to take a week off, whatever it is. Come back to like normalcy, and we're going to work very hard to make sure that you don't explode. But you know why we tell them? We tell them because we don't want them to feel like they're getting sidelined. Because that's when the A people immediately think that.
Their mind starts playing games on them. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So then you want to protect them. So you say, I'm doing this for your protection, so you can do other creative work. You brought this so far. We can't have you crack. And I think like a day or two later, they kind of at least appreciate like the thought process. And then you're also, like I said, like organizations find a way to de-risk. And I think this is part of like the de-risking. Like, this is no longer 5 people going at it, which was 2021. Now, there are hundreds going at it. And like the John Ivy genius, it can't be replaced. You lose John Ivy, you lose John Ivy, that's it. However, all the other A people are super important, but cannot be critical to the business. So you have to play that balance out on how do you keep people motivated, keep people excited about things, keep giving them short-term goals, right? What's the same question to you on the business side? Like, how do you, motivate or like have the same burnout issues or A-level issues?
Yeah, I think it's similar. I think it's similar. How I think about it often is there is no perfect, even for you and me, because we get to chart the path. There is no like perfect, I hate to call it job, but there's no perfect set of responsibilities. And what I mean by that is if we can get, I always think about this, if we can get all our teams working in 80-20, meaning 80% of the time they are in a happy place in their zone of genius, they're being creative, etc. And the 20% of the time they're doing operational stuff, they're doing stuff that is not super exciting, I'm okay with the 80-20. Now, if the 80-20 becomes 50-50, now that scope creep is too much. And you could start to see it in how they work. So I think just like you, labeling it for them, saying, hey, today I had an interview with a really great candidate today. And my first question I ask in interviews is, hey, tell me what you don't like. Just be super honest with me. Tell me what you don't like. Because if you can, and I said, I will not hold this against you. Like, you have to tell me what you don't like. And then if he tells me, or he or she tells me like the 15 things they don't like, and the 15 things they don't like is literally the scope of the role, I can be like, dude, you're going to hate it here. And then you tell them why. So I think that even on our teams, all our partners, like I always think about, I'm like, if I can see one of our partners kind of starting to crack, I know right away that their 80-20 has skewed. And so instead of instantly getting them to take time off, I'm like, hey, how can I get them to do more of the things that they love in the 80 and reduce the 20? And that starts to become super helpful. But you said something, dude, which was really powerful. And you said it very naturally, but you glossed over it. And I want to ask you your perspective on this. You talked about the quality, speed, cost factor, the 3 factors. And we talk about that often. And people say, hey, you've got quality, you've got speed, you've got cost. You can only generally have 2 out of 3. Is that like, do you prescribe to that? What is your thinking around that? Do you think you talk about that with the team? How do you think about like that thing?
We don't actively talk about it because like the people operating and like doing the work are not actually making the decision of what they're working on. That decision is made outside. But we do talk about it like on the planning stages. Recently, we started even talking about like impact. Hey, we're going to spend X resources, whether it's dollars, people equals to dollars in many ways, and what the impact is. 20 agents, 100 agents, 18,000 agents. What is the impact, right? And sometimes that's not the only parameter, right? Because sometimes it's like, hey, you just have to do it. Even if it only is 20 agents, like I got to make this press release or whatever it is, right? So, and sometimes it's pure R&D, which cannot be justified. It impacts like 0 people right now, but could impact everybody in like a year from now, right? So it's not the only parameter, but it helps. We're starting to realize that might be something that we start honing on to justify expensive resource allocation, right? And then, of course, like we also talk about like, okay, let's use property search as an example. Nobody's ever going to know if the property search works perfectly on 100% of the properties. They're just not going to know, right? They only know that that one property doesn't show up if they find that property. So that's a great example of like when you choose your risk ratio, do you have to put your top resources on it, or do you have to, go down the path of like making sure that it has to be perfectly done for the launch? No, right? It just needs to work, and then you improve it.
So let's bring this home on this topic, and different people think about this differently. How do you, in a very raw way of outcome versus output, it is easy to say, hey, I'm going to go write this 4-page requirements document, or I'm going to build this Google slide culture can take over and destroy companies, because it literally everything becomes a deck and no one does any work. And I don't know how else to say it in less of a thoughtful way, because you and I have been in meetings where like, we've seen 4 beautiful decks, but no one did any work. And I appreciate the thinking and the effort that went into building these decks, but that feels like a checking the box on an output, right? Like, and so what is that? It feels like there's some kind of happy medium, but it's also subjective. How do we reconcile the fact of, hey, when do I put effort into creating an artifact that is important and that I can put time into it? And when do I put more effort into being succinct and practical? Like, how do you think about that?
I think if this is like a really great question, and like I'm spending a lot of time trying to like crystallize this thing. And I've come to this point where we say, okay, if you can write something in 3 lines, you will actually be able to tell yourself that you actually accomplished that. When you deliver that thing and you just go back and read the 3 lines, and you say, hey, it does this 3 lines. If you have 15 pages, best of luck trying to verify everything is done, because you could not crystallize down the outcome. When you are forced to write something in 3 lines, you're crystallizing the outcome, not how you're going to do it, what you're trying to do, and what is the end goal of what you're trying to do, right? That's the only thing you can do in 3 lines. You cannot actually say how. The how is longer, right? But when you are able to crystallize it, I think the verification of what you were trying to, the intention, and which is the expected outcome. And the verification of the outcome is easy when if it's 3 lines. And it forces you to crystallize. So what I'm trying to help, at least our team, is if you just produce 3 lines at the end of 15 days sprint cycles on the product side, like for example, it is not a negative thing. It is actually a great accomplishment. Of course, if the task is trivial, like, listen, like, what did you do? But I'm just saying in general, a complicated task, if you've condensed everything down, you've done the research, you've talked to customers, you've figured out everything you need to know, and you've condensed it down to 3 lines or 10 lines or whatever it is, and that can be handed over saying, here's the blueprint of what we're trying to do, then you collaboratively work with a designer, and the designer comes out with a Figma file. That's all you need. You've got a bunch of smart people who can read all this stuff and like understand what we're trying to do, and then ask questions along the way. If you write 15 pages, it really isn't actually helpful. As in a hyper growth company, in an IBM like company, sure. Like, I mean, nobody's dying to like release something in a month from now. I'm sorry, but it's just a fact. It couldn't be billions of dollars in investment, and like the outcomes, you can see where it is, right? So, but we're not there. Like, we need people who can run and make others run with you. And if you're just writing documents, then when are you running, right? So, I don't know. I think we struggle right now. By the same time, like, I'm trying really hard to like get people to get to that point.
Yeah. So if you are listening to this, and this is not a pitch for anything, but if you're listening to this and you are a outcome versus output person, and you want to build cool things and be in a fast growth environment, and know that every piece of effort or every piece of unit of work that you're putting in is creating something that has never been built before, that you can show a proof of concept on, that you can play with, that you can see your work come to life, that you can experiment with, then this may be you should message Pritesh or I. If it's on the engineering product side, you should definitely message Pritesh or me. And if it's on the business side, definitely reach out to me. I will tell you, Pritesh, I've had more high caliber, A quality people who have inbounded listening to the show or listening to something that we've done and saying, hey, that ethos resonated with me, and so I want to do more. And by the way, I've been talking to one of our folks that is coming on recently to help drive growth for us. And I've been talking to him for 6+ months. There was no role available, and we created one just for him, which I think is insanely powerful. So if you want to change the world, Pritesh and I would love to talk to you.